Innovating in a regulated environment obviously comes with guardrails. When we introduce generative and agentic AI, the stakes get even higher. How does one financial services institution navigate and successfully innovate with AI? Find out on today's episode.
I'm Kathleen Peters from Experian, and you're listening to Me, Myself, and AI.
Welcome to Me, Myself, and AI, a podcast from MIT Sloan Management Review, exploring the future of artificial intelligence. I'm Sam Ransbotham, professor of analytics at Boston College. I've been researching data, analytics, and AI at MIT SMR since 2014, with research articles, annual industry reports, case studies, and now 12 seasons of podcast episodes. On each episode, corporate leaders, cutting-edge researchers, and AI policymakers join us to break down what separates AI hype from AI success. Hi, listeners. Thanks for joining us again today. Today I'm talking with Kathleen Peters, Chief Innovation Officer at Experian. Kathleen, great to have you with us.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Sam.
Experian likely knows a lot about us, but some of our listeners might not know as much about Experian. So let's start. Can you give us a brief overview and in particular your role?
Experian's a global data and technology company, and we empower opportunities for people and businesses all around the world. We help define lending practices. We uncover and prevent fraud for our clients and for consumers. We simplify healthcare, and we deliver digital marketing solutions.
Well, your role is the Chief Innovation Officer. I didn't know about the Experian Innovation Lab. Tell us about the lab and what are some of the projects that have come out of the lab?
I work very closely with my partner, who is Dr. Shanji Zhang, our chief scientist and technical leader for our lab, which is comprised of data scientists and software engineers who are really harnessing the power of the data that we have to help create the products that our clients and partners need, as well as to help consumers through our direct-to-consumer business. So Shanji and the lab have been working with AI for decades, especially when it comes to fraud. Then in 2022, late in the year, when we saw the public rollout of generative AI, this wasn't new to our lab. The lab had been working with generative AI techniques in the past, but that real democratization that happened that made these capabilities available to you and I and everyone, especially through OpenAI releasing ChatGPT, the lab has really been on the forefront of the productization that we have done of generative AI techniques and bringing those into our app that consumers can use, as well as products like Experian Assistant. Experian Assistant enables individuals at our clients to be able to derive insights, to have visualizations of analytic models, scores, trends, to be able to do the kinds of things that would have typically required data scientists on both sides to work on for weeks or months, to deploy models in production, and then get the results back. Now we can do this in a matter of minutes. So that's one particular innovation that we have been really excited about that's really on the cutting edge because it's leveraging agentic AI as well.
But I want to come back to, you mentioned democratization, and I think you positioned it as a positive thing, but you also deal with a lot of bad actors who just got access to a lot of amazing technology too. Tell us a little bit about how that's changed the world when the bad actors also have access to this technology.
Yeah, this is something that probably keeps me awake at night, if I'm honest. There are so many capabilities that are unleashed by the new capabilities that are here and made available through the foundational models, through tools like ChatGPT and Claude and others. And that is very exciting for us as consumers, for us as scientists building capabilities at Experian and other companies. But you're absolutely right. It also empowers fraudsters. And you have very organized, motivated, intelligent people who are looking to commit frauds, especially in an online world. And we're hearing a lot about the quality of deep fakes that are being produced by fraudsters using these tools. We are also seeing an increase in the quality as well as the sheer scale of the number of scams that are being perpetrated. Generative AI allows the fraudsters and their organizations to use very natural language. It allows them to get creative about the victim that they are grooming and targeting. And so this is something that we really need to all be aware of, not only as businesses, but as a society, that the quality of these scams is increasing, and we need to look out for each other and have our guard up just a little bit more when something may not seem quite right or maybe a little bit too good to be true, perhaps.
Well, whether you're at home or on the go, banking with MIT Federal Credit Union is easier than ever. The redesigned mobile and online banking platform will make navigating your finances easier, faster, and personalized to you. Plus, as a member of MIT FCU, you unlock access to over 5,600 branches and 30,000 ATMs nationwide. MIT Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA. Learn more at mitfcu.org/podcast. I guess there's also an aspect of outright fraud, but it also seems like there's some opportunities here for, let's say, improvements in financial inclusion too.
Well, it's really interesting to me when we had this democratization event occur in late 2022. Really, there were three different things that happened. So one of them was that we suddenly had free access to this capability. OpenAI and publishing ChatGPT made a version of this which was free for anyone to download and try. And so there was wide availability and access to this technology. Another thing that happened was that you did not need to be a data scientist. You did not need to use a programming language. We could use natural language to interface with this capability. And the third thing that happened is that over time, there's been an evolution of the compute capability. We hear a lot about the chips that NVIDIA creates, for example. We certainly just didn't have that scale of compute available for processing this kind of artificial intelligence. And that limited the real-time nature of it. It limited the amount of data that could be consumed in using these technologies. And the reason I bring that up is because, as you mentioned, we have an opportunity on the positive side as well. And financial inclusion is very important to Experian. The more data that you're able to bring to the question, to the problem, to the scoring that you're trying to solve, the more accurately you'll be able to understand the risk or lack of risk associated with the individual that you're trying to understand better. And so being able to access more and more data, I can look at things that are maybe not part of a standard typical credit report, for example. Things like, am I paying bills on time every month that are not the types of bills that are reported to a credit agency? Can I furnish that data? Can I show my identity, not just through my name, address, date of birth, social security number, but also digital identifiers that link my email or my phone number with my identity that give greater confidence in who I am. So being able to understand more history, more data, having the compute power to be able to do that in real time allows us to better understand the individuals that are coming forward. And that's really what drives financial inclusion.
Yeah, at the heart of stereotyping is the idea of making a quick decision with imperfect information. And I think you're drawing a connection between greater detail and greater information, letting you make a better, more personalized decision.
Yes.
But at the same time, you also operate in a very regulated industry where you have a lot of rules to follow, and then new stuff comes out quickly. How are you balancing that tension where stuff's coming out quickly that you perhaps could use to make better decisions, but at the same time, you're in a regulatory framework that by definition lags the technology. How do you reconcile those, competing forces?
We are strong advocates for the consumer being part of that conversation. We're somewhat unique in our relationship with consumers directly. Not only do we have our business-to-business operations that people know as Experian, for a long time, for decades, we have had a direct-to-consumer relationship as well. Being a highly regulated organization, as you noted, means that we understand the types of restrictions and limitations on this data. It is a core responsibility that we believe we have as trusted stewards of people's data to be mindful and very careful in understanding the responsibility that goes along with that.
It feels like there's still some tension, though, because you are a large company, and I think there's a bit of a myth out there that large companies can't innovate. But at the same time, what you're describing is a lot of changes that have happened in the last couple of years, particularly with generative AI and large language models. Maybe I start with the myth. Is it the same innovating at a large company as a small company? Or what's different about innovating at a large company versus a small one?
Hey folks, Stephen Johnson here, co-founder of Notebook LM. As an author, I've always been obsessed with how software could help organize ideas and make connections. So we built Notebook LM as an AI-first tool for anyone trying to make sense of complex information. Upload your documents, and Notebook LM instantly becomes your personal expert, uncovering insights and helping you brainstorm. Try it at notebooklm.google.com.
Having worked at a number of startups myself, I have some personal perspective on this as well. The great thing about being at a large company like Experian is the availability of resources and scale. We also understand the history. And as we were talking about just before, working in a regulated environment, we know where the pitfalls are, and we know how to do this safely and responsibly. It's really important with AI, and when businesses are working with it, that you understand the inherent risks that are there, that you educate the workforce about those risks, and you have a council to review that on a regular basis. But then you also have the security and the guardrails in place to help everyone do that in a way that will have longevity and that will give innovators the freedom to know that they can experiment in a way that is going to lead to things that could ultimately be products, and that they will be able to safely and responsibly do so. So I really value the scale and the governance that comes with the larger company. Certainly you have the reputation in a smaller company of the agility of working with a smaller, more nimble team. You are very focused on growth, and you may not necessarily have the same shareholder accountability yet when you're venture backed that you do when you have public shareholders. But I do believe, and we've demonstrated this at Experian, that when you take a really deliberate approach to innovation and you start to build that into the culture of the company and the culture of the product management and product development organizations, now you have this very cool opportunity to harness the capabilities of an entity like our innovation lab and bring some of that startup mentality and that fresh greenfield type of thinking to some of the hardest problems that you're trying to solve.
You touched on your background as a startup. The name of our podcast is Me, Myself, and AI. We'd like to know a little bit about how did you get to where you are? Tell us a little bit about your background. I know from your beautiful accent that you're from the South, and I can already tell that. But I think there's engineering in your background too. So give us a little history of how you got to where you are.
Yes. So I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, which about as darn near center, I think, maybe as you can be of the country. And a lot of my family is still there. diehard Cardinals fan, I have to say that. I went to engineering school at Missouri University of Science and Technology in Southern Missouri and studied electrical engineering. And while I was studying, I became very interested in digital communications. At that time, particularly in the US, there was a big transition going on from analog cellular phones to digital cellular phones. And Motorola in particular was doing some really exciting research and innovation in this area. So upon graduating, I joined Motorola and was part of a team that was building the Iridium satellite phone network, and particularly the handheld phones themselves, which required just enormous amount of innovation and new techniques, because instead of your cell phone talking as it does today to a stationary radio tower or to a Wi-Fi base station, a satellite phone, especially one dealing with a system like Iridium, which is an orbit of low Earth orbit satellites, the target that you're talking to is moving at tremendous speed from horizon to horizon, and then you're handing off from one satellite to another. It's a very different type of radio technology, and I found that extremely fascinating. So I was really fortunate early in my career to be part of a moonshot type of an R&D endeavor that I believe planted a seed very early on a desire to satisfy that curiosity of what's next. Through my career, I joined a company called Cadence Design Systems, using a lot of the tools and simulation of new techniques, especially in the development of hardware integrated circuits and the chips that we use, especially in these communication devices. Before joining Experian, I worked for a startup, and we were encrypting the communications for secure transmission of voice and text between off-the-shelf mobile phone devices that could be used by businesses as well as by government entities. And that cybersecurity aspect is really then what led me to be curious about fraud. Cybersecurity helps us lock down the walls and the perimeter around us. Once those are breached, fraud is what happens. So fraud and cybersecurity aren't exactly the same, but they're certainly related. And as more people are doing risky things online, like financial transactions, it's that much more important for us to understand what we can do to fight fraud and to secure people's movements when they are doing these things online. So that has become a real passion of mine over the last several years. And I've been really excited about how Experian has leaned in to innovating in this area and investing in this area and bringing the weight of the data and the analytics and the platforms that we have to understand people's identities and really be innovative about stopping fraud.
I always like any story where an engineer turns out all right. So you talked about these innovative technologies coming along, and some of them may be threatening people's jobs, particularly in technical roles. There's reports out this week as we're talking, predicting doom for technical roles, which I'm 100% against. But what do you think? Are technical roles likely to dissipate? What's happening there?
We've had some interesting examples, Sam, around this exact topic. And as we've been experimenting with generative AI, I'll share a story with you about one of our top data scientists. Shanji, our lab leader, our chief scientist, asked him to explore a new area that he did not have as much experience with. In this particular case, it had to do with optical character recognition of unstructured documents. So you can imagine forms that people may fill out, sometimes still with a pen and paper, and being able to use those forms and process them as efficiently as possible. What he did was, first, he used the enterprise version of our large language model tool and said, tell me more about the latest capabilities in OCR. What are the limitations? If I haven't worked with this before, what should I know? How do technical people use this? And he used it in the first instance, like many of us do, for education. And from there, then, he wanted to experiment more, and he actually used the voice audio input as opposed to typing in a prompt. He vocally prompted the model to create code for him. He said, I see, we haven't used these structures. Rewrite the code using this type of an architectural approach. And because of his skills, he was able to ask the model to refine and refine and refine. And over the course of approximately an hour, he came up with a solution that he was very pleased with, that really gave that combination of human plus AI to come up with a fantastic executable piece of code to accomplish the task that was at hand. He actually then took a piece of code that he had written a few years ago and plugged that into the model and asked it to optimize the code that he had written and had optimized by hand and was proud of. The model came back and improved the performance of his code by 40 times. He was blown away, and he didn't say, oh my gosh, I'm afraid of losing my job. He suddenly felt like he had superhero powers. In that way, that positive energy made me realize that there's a lot of news cycle, there's a lot of hype. Yes, people's jobs are going to change, but there is absolutely a place where I believe the capabilities that we're seeing are going to help supercharge people at all levels of the organization.
Okay, I like that example, but there's a thread that I want to pull on in it, which is that you said that as part of it, he was able to steer and direct the model.
Mm-hmm.
That works because of the experience that that person had. What happens in the future when people have grown up without that experience to be able to steer the model?
I'll give you another example that I think speaks to this issue as well. So in our customer support centers, we have a different type of skill set, right? This is not the PhD data scientists. These are people who are answering phones and giving assistance to our customers. These are folks who are still very much in a human type of a job where they're interfacing with humans. And certainly in regulated industries such as ours, we're going to continue to have human beings in these centers for a long time. This type of job also tends to have a very high degree of turnover. The people who have been there longer are the best. When they are getting a question from a customer, they know how to bring up the knowledge databases that may have those answers. They know exactly where to look. When we have someone as brand new, it's stressful. You're on the phone. Usually people are not calling customer support to tell you how wonderful they think the business is, right? So what we started to build there were agents and bots that could actually help those individuals in our customer support center. And the way that that would work is that someone who was brand new, as they're hearing the customer call in, the customer is verbalizing their concern, the agent is able to type that in natural language, the question they're hearing from this upset customer. The tool can also help and understand the sentiment, and the tools can prompt the customer service agent for phrases they can say to help build empathy, to bring down the temperature of that phone call, and to quickly get answers, not just in some text that the agent has to read, but in natural language to answer the person's actual question. And that has empowered especially these new hire people that, to your point earlier, they're not coming necessarily with the skills. How can we get them confident and upskilled more quickly? Having this assistant by their side to help them do their job better, faster, has proven to be a real breakthrough. We have seen a decrease in turnover and an increase in job satisfaction within that department. And even the folks who are more skilled and had a lot of that inherent knowledge, again, they feel supercharged. And that's not just great for morale, that's good business. That saves us time and money in terms of being able to retain employees. So that's an example where I see the benefits of these capabilities on both ends of the spectrum.
Hi, everyone. We're back with another segment in our branded interview series with Dr. Ananya Mukherjee, Vice Chancellor of Shiv Nadar University. Thank you again for joining us. Let's review for those who may not have joined us previously. Can you describe Shiv Nadar University for our listeners?
The university was established in 2011, and at that time, the interdisciplinary or even multidisciplinary approaches were not common in India. Mr. Nader himself studied engineering, and he said that, I wanted to take courses in physics, but I couldn't. And so when he wanted to establish the university, he thought that not only can students do physics and engineering, they should be able to do physics and poetry, or as we say now, from Python to philosophy. Just feed their minds, feed their curiosity. That was the mission behind the university. And to feed it also through the study of different subject areas and also through research.
So why do you think that people should study artificial intelligence? Why is studying artificial intelligence important?
Well, for so many reasons. First of all, we are in the middle of a huge debate around how AI is going to evolve. AI could have great benefits if we can get it right. So if we are to maximize the gains from AI, that will need human agency and probably, strong collective human agency. We will need empowered, skilled decision makers, expansion of what many have called now the decision intelligence ways of doing things. Right now, we don't know how exactly that world is going to evolve, but we know that at least the capacity to deal with uncertainty and new evolutions is necessary. So we are one of the few universities in India who have promulgated an AI use policy, and we are giving our faculty and our students freedom and creativity, but also some structure within which they can use AI tools. And in addition, in every program, faculty are exploring the question of the right tools, the right kind of assessments, the right pedagogy to give our graduates the right competencies that they need. The study of AI in all its dimensions is important, and we need to cut through the hype and remain focused on the essential questions. And this, I think, is the ideal task for universities, that you cut through the hype, you ask the questions, and you keep asking till you are satisfied with the answers.
Thank you so much for joining us today and telling us about Shiv Nadar University. Where should prospective students go to learn more about Shiv Nadar?
I would say the first step would be the website, snu.edu.in/home. And on the website, we also have each of our faculty's contacts and their research areas. So if you're interested in any particular research area, then feel free to contact the faculty.
Actually, that aligns well with some research that we've done over the last couple of years, where we're looking for some of these intangible outcomes, not financial benefits, but job satisfaction and other cultural type benefits. And we ended up finding similar results there. We have a segment where we ask you just some rapid fire questions. So just think of the first thing that comes to your mind, and short answers are fine. What about AI is moving faster or slower than you expected?
The power that we are seeing, the doors and opportunities that it is opening, for good and for bad. I'm always worried about fraud when I see about the new exciting opportunities things are opening, but the scale of it is something that I didn't expect to happen so quickly. I was already amazed when I started to see this democratization happening 2 years ago, and the way that we've accelerated so quickly since then, especially with agents now, I find extremely fascinating and moving much more quickly than I could have imagined.
What do you wish that AI could do better, or what frustrates you about AI right now?
One challenge that I see that I know various individuals and companies are trying to tackle, including our teams here at Experian, is understanding the trust that will be required as agents become more active and involved in the transactions that we do in our lives. And so I'll give you an example around that. There's a lot of talk about agentic commerce. How can I enable an agent to make purchases on my behalf, to talk to agents at other entities, such as the credit bureau, at a bank, at a retailer, at an airline, to conduct transactions on my behalf? The technology is already there. It's proven you can go see this and build an agent yourself that can do all those things today. What's missing is the trust. How do we, as the Bureau, how does a bank know that the agent that is coming to visit its site or speaking to its agent is an authorized agent? How do we know that there is a human who has consented this agent to act on its behalf? How do we know that the human that is supposedly associated with this agent is who they say they are? There aren't standards in place yet for this, and the technological capability is moving way faster than these types of signatures, authorizations, protocols that will be necessary to help build that trust so that each entity in the value chain can understand the validity of that agent. The reason I'm worried about that too, again, is because anytime there's a vacuum in this regard, it can be abused. So we as industry and frankly as society need to move equally fast to help build that trust into these agents who are increasingly going to be working on our behalf.
Yeah, that's a huge thing there. Just the whole identity problem. We started the internet very anonymous, and yet we are retrofitting identity on top of it, and that makes it challenging. This has been a fascinating discussion. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you so much. It's been great to be with you.
Thanks for listening. Next time, I'll talk with Vishal Gupta, Machine Learning Engineering Lead at Reddit. Please join us.
Thanks for listening to Me, Myself, and AI. Our show is able to continue in large part due to listener support. Your streams and downloads make a big difference. If you have a moment, please consider leaving us an Apple Podcasts review or a rating on Spotify, and share our show with others you think might find it interesting and helpful.